Dust rolled across the lonely prairie road as Clara Hale walked with slow, unsteady steps, her shawl pulled tight around her shoulders. The evening wind bit at her skin, carrying with it the distant smell of sagebrush and the memory of a home she would never return to. One hand pressed against her ribs, where the bruises still flared with each breath. The other clutched a small cloth bundle, everything she owned. She had left before dawn, slipping out the back door while the world still slept. Behind her, she left fear, disappointment, and the last pieces of the life she once believed she deserved. Ahead of her stretched miles of open land that didn't care who she was or where she came from. By sundown, Clara's legs trembled too badly to carry her farther. She lowered herself onto a fallen log at the side of the road, shoulders sagging as exhaustion settled deep in her bones. The prairie around her lay quiet and indifferent. Even the sky seemed too big, a wide, endless dome she felt too small beneath. She bowed her head into her hands. Lord, I ain't got much left in me. The sound of distant hooves broke the silence. Clara froze. The rhythm drew closer, steady, unhurried. A horse slowed, stopped. She kept her eyes on the dirt at her feet. Boots stepped down, their weight stirring dust. A tall shadow fell beside her. Ma'am, you all right? The voice was deep, calm, and surprisingly gentle. Clara didn't move. I'm fine, she muttered, though her voice trembled. The rider didn't challenge her. Instead, he gave her space, speaking with the quiet patience of a man used to skittish colts. Name's Sawyer Briggs. I'm headed west to my ranch. Looks like you've been walking longer than a body ought to. She said nothing. Sawyer continued, ain't here to bother you. Just figured you might want some water. Or a place to rest that don't involve a splintered log. Only then did Clara lift her head. Sawyer Briggs stood a few steps away, tall, broad-shouldered, with dust on his coat and sunburn along his jaw. A working cowboy through and through. But his eyes held something she hadn't seen in a long time. Warmth without expectation. Kindness without price. He extended a canteen toward her. No charge, he said softly. No questions. Clara hesitated, then she accepted. The first swallow of water slid down her throat like relief she hadn't earned. She coughed, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. Sawyer studied her with quiet concern. You look like someone who's been told she don't matter much. Clara stiffened. Sawyer shook his head slowly. But I don't believe a word of that. Her breath shuddered out of her. She had braced for suspicion or judgment, maybe even a demand. But his voice carried neither. Only sincerity. Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. Sawyer stepped closer, his tone dropping to something even gentler. Whatever you've been through, you're worth more than you know. And for the first time in a long time, Clara Hale let herself cry. Sawyer didn't speak while Clara cried, didn't rush her, didn't reach for her, didn't fill the silence with questions she wasn't ready to answer. He simply stood there, broad and steady as an old oak, letting her grief run its course. When her breathing finally slowed, Clara wiped her cheeks with the edge of her sleeve. Embarrassment prickled beneath her skin, but Sawyer didn't look at her the way other men had. No judgment, no impatience. Only quiet understanding. You eaten today? He asked. Clara shook her head. Sawyer sighed softly, as if something in that answer hurt him. My camp ain't far. Got a fire going, beans on the coals. You're welcome to share it, if you'd like. Clara's gaze flicked down the road. She saw nothing there but more dust, more distance, more miles she wasn't sure she could survive. But years of being careful, cautious, fearful kept her chained to her place on the log. I don't know you, she whispered. Sawyer nodded. Fair enough. And I ain't asking for trust. Just offering a warm meal and a safe patch of ground. You can leave after if you want. Clara hesitated. The wind carried a chill across her bruised ribs. Her legs trembled each time she shifted. She could continue on alone, but she wasn't sure where, alone, even led anymore. She lifted her fragile bundle, 2 dresses, 1 cracked comb, and a small Bible with worn edges. All right, she said quietly. Just for dinner. Sawyer dipped his head in thanks, then offered his hand to help her up. Clara didn't take it. Instead, she used the log to steady herself and stood on her own. A flicker of respect passed through Sawyer's eyes, the kind not spoken, only felt. As they walked toward the camp, Clara limped slightly, favoring her bruised side. Sawyer noticed but didn't comment. He simply matched her pace, slow and patient, as though he had nowhere more important to be. The camp sat in a small hollow between two low ridges, sheltered from the wind. Sawyer had already pitched his canvas roll and built a tidy fire ring. The flames glowed orange against the coming dusk. A pot of beans simmered, scent rising through the air like a warm invitation. Clara stopped at the edge of the firelight, unsure. Sawyer gestured gently toward a blanket spread near the flames. "You're welcome to sit. Heat will help with that chill you've got." Clara eased down carefully. The warmth seeped into her bones, loosening knots of tension she didn't realize she carried. Sawyer ladled beans into a tin bowl and handed it to her. "Eat slow. Haven't had much in you lately, I'd guess." Clara couldn't hide how hungrily she accepted the food. The first taste nearly made her cry again, not because it was extraordinary, but because it was the first kindness she'd known in months. Sawyer sat across the fire, watching the flames instead of her, giving her the dignity of privacy while she ate. After a long silence, he spoke, voice low and steady. "Whoever made you feel small, they were wrong." Clara's spoon paused. Sawyer's gaze lifted, meeting hers across the firelight. "You're stronger than you think," he said, "and worth more than any man ever told you." Clara looked away, eyes stinging. The wind shifted, carrying sparks upward like tiny rising stars. For the first time in a long while, Clara didn't feel invisible. Night settled slowly over the hollow, laying deep blue shadows across the ridges and softening the hard edges of the world. The fire cracked gently, throwing sparks upward like drifting fireflies. Clara sat wrapped in Sawyer's spare blanket, hands cupped around the empty bowl, the taste of warm beans lingering like the memory of a kindness she didn't quite know how to trust. Sawyer didn't push her for conversation. He leaned back against a saddle propped upright, arms loose across his broad chest, eyes half-lidded as though listening not just to the wind, but to the quiet between them. He seemed comfortable in silence, a man who didn't use words to fill space, only to honor it. Clara wasn't used to that. After years of living under voices raised, slammed doors, or cold dismissals, silence with Sawyer felt strange. Safe. And safety made her nervous. Safety meant she might start to feel again. She set the empty bowl beside her and pulled the blanket tighter. Sawyer's voice broke the quiet, low and gentle. "If you're cold, fire can be stoked higher." Clara shook her head. "It's not the cold." Sawyer studied her a moment. He didn't pry, just waited, the way some men waited for a horse to approach on its own terms. Clara breathed in, slow, unsure why the words felt like they were rising on their own. "I left because I had to," she said softly. Sawyer didn't move, didn't look surprised, didn't rush her. Clara stared into the fire, watching its heart pulse gold and orange. "My husband, he wasn't kind. Not ever, not even at the start. I kept hoping he'd soften, change, remember that I was a person, not a burden." Her voice thinned. "But he never did." Sawyer's jaw tightened, though he still said nothing. "1 week ago," Clara continued, eyes fixed on the fire's glow, "he lost at cards. Badly. He came home angry, blamed me for his luck, said Providence cursed him the day he married me." Her fingers dug into the blanket. "He threw my things in the dirt and told me to leave. Said he didn't want a barren wife who couldn't give him a legacy." Sawyer exhaled slowly, the air moving through him like someone restraining a storm. Clara blinked hard, fighting tears she didn't want him to see. "I tried to go to town, but I didn't make it far. The hunger, the pain, I would have collapsed if you hadn't walked down that road." Sawyer's eyes softened, though the anger beneath them simmered, not at her, but at the man she'd fled. "You didn't deserve any of that," he said quietly. Clara let out a brittle laugh. "I deserved some of it. I stayed too long. I believed too many lies." Sawyer leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "There's strength in surviving what someone tried to break in you. Don't mistake endurance for weakness." Clara went still. No one had ever said something like that to her. Not once. Sawyer looked into the fire again, not prying further. "You're safe here tonight," he said. "That's the only thing that matters for now." The words settled around her like a warm coat, unfamiliar but deeply needed. And for the first time in years, Clara believed them. The fire burned lower as the night deepened, shrinking into a warm glow that flickered across the hollow like a gentle heartbeat. Clara sat in its circle of light, wrapped in Sawyer's blanket, though the warmth wasn't what kept her awake. It was the unfamiliar comfort, the steadiness of a man who didn't yell, didn't threaten, didn't demand she explain her existence. Sawyer poked the remaining embers with a stick, pushing them together into a neat cluster. He worked with slow, practiced motions, the kind a man learned from years on the trail, the kind that suggested patience was a part of his bones, not a skill learned out of necessity. Clara studied him quietly. His profile was outlined by firelight, strong jaw, wind-beaten skin, a calmness that made her wonder what sorrows he carried under it all. No one lived this far from town without some kind of reason. Sawyer spoke without looking up. "You're welcome to use my bedroll tonight. I'll take first watch." Clara blinked. "Watch? Is there danger?" Sawyer gave a small shrug. "Always some. Coyotes, maybe a cougar. Sometimes folk who don't like others crossing their land after dark. Better to be cautious." Clara swallowed, her throat tightening around the familiar ache. The fear of being a burden, of taking something from someone already carrying enough. "I don't want to put you out," she said. Sawyer finally met her eyes. "You're not." The certainty in his tone made something tremble inside her, a part of her so used to rejection that kindness felt like stepping onto thin ice. Sawyer stood and moved toward his horse, Duke. He whispered something low into the gelding's ear, a sound Clara couldn't make out. Duke gave a soft snort, relaxing into the man's touch. Clara watched, a faint warmth curling through her. A man's gentleness toward animals often revealed who he was more honestly than his words ever could. When Sawyer returned, he carried a second blanket and set it carefully beside her. "You get some rest when you're ready," he said. "Long day behind you. Might be a longer one ahead." Clara hesitated. She wanted to argue. She didn't deserve comfort, didn't deserve a stranger's careful concern. But exhaustion weighed heavy in her bones, pulling her down like stones tied to her ribs. Sawyer settled on the opposite side of the fire, leaning back against his saddle, rifle resting across his lap, not in a threatening way, but in the quiet, habitual manner of a man accustomed to keeping others safe. Clara's voice wavered. "Why are you helping me? You don't know anything about me." Sawyer considered that for a long moment. Then he answered, soft but steady, "Because someone should have." He paused. "And because nobody should be left to walk the night alone." Clara felt the words wrap around her, gentler than any touch. A lump rose in her throat. Sawyer glanced toward her, not with pity, but with something far more dangerous. Respect, care, maybe even the earliest flicker of hope. "Sleep," he said. "I'll keep the fire up." Clara lay down slowly, the blanket soft beneath her cheek, the fire crackling like a lullaby in the night. For the first time in years, she fell asleep without fear. The wind had settled by the time they reached the ridge above Cole Thatcher's ranch, but the world felt no calmer inside Alma Carson's chest. She sat slumped in the saddle, her hands clinging weakly to the horn, her breath shallow and uneven. Every mile they rode stripped another layer of strength she'd been pretending she still had. Cole rode beside her, keeping Duke close enough that he could reach her if she swayed. He watched the way she blinked too slow, how her shoulders curled in as if bracing against blows long past but never forgotten. Below them, the ranch stretched quiet and wide, golden pasture, a small house with smoke curling steady from the chimney, a barn standing solid against the fading light. Peaceful, safe, everything Alma had not felt in months. But she didn't look relieved. She looked lost. Cole reined in, turning toward her. "We're almost there." Alma nodded, though her eyes stayed fixed on the house. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Too nice for someone like me." Her voice cracked on the last word. Cole felt that crack like a splinter under his ribs. He dismounted first, boots crunching softly in the dry grass. When he stepped toward her, Alma flinched without meaning to. Not from him, but from the memory of heavier footsteps, harsher voices. Cole didn't take offense. He simply held out his hands and waited. After a moment, she let him lift her down. She was lighter than he expected, or maybe she had simply carried too much for too long. Her legs buckled the moment her feet touched the ground, and Cole's arms closed around her before she could fall. Alma froze, breath caught, muscles rigid. Then something inside her cracked open. A soft, broken sound slipped from her throat, and her fingers clutched at his coat. Not clinging, not seeking, just anchoring. as if she feared she might drift away entirely if she didn't hold onto something solid. Cole's voice dropped to a near whisper. "You're safe here. No one's gonna touch you. No one's gonna take from you again." Her forehead pressed weakly against his chest. "I don't understand why you're helping me," she said. "I'm not." Her breath hitched. "I'm not worth the trouble." Cole closed his eyes for a long, steadying moment. He'd heard many lies in his life, but none sounded as cruel as the one she'd just spoken about herself. He tilted her chin gently, forcing her to meet his gaze. "Alma," he said, voice low but certain, "someone hurt you so deep you can't see yourself anymore. But I see you. I see the woman who survived more than most could bear. The woman still standing. The woman who deserves rest. And kindness. And a chance." Her lips trembled. "Why me?" "Because you're a person," he said. "And that's enough." Her tears came silent and sudden, slipping down her cheeks as if they'd been waiting years for permission. Cole didn't wipe them away. He simply let her cry, held her steady under the open sky, until her shaking slowed, until the weight she carried loosened just enough for her to breathe. For the first time in a long time, someone's arms didn't take from her. They held her up. And the canyon wind, soft and warm this time, carried the truth she could not yet speak. She wasn't beyond saving. She wasn't beyond love. Not anymore. The night had thickened over the ranch, velvet black with a sky full of stars that seemed impossibly distant. Inside the small cabin, a fire crackled in the hearth, its warmth spilling across the wooden floorboards. Alma sat in a chair near the flames, knees drawn to her chest, blanket wrapped tight around her shoulders. For the first time in months, she felt sheltered, though the comfort was almost foreign, almost frightening in its unfamiliarity. Cole moved about the cabin quietly, setting a pot of water on the stove, arranging blankets on the floor for a makeshift bed. Every gesture was deliberate, careful, like he was arranging the world to hold her safely. He didn't speak much, he never did, but the silence was not empty. It carried reassurance, steadiness, and a wordless promise that she would not be abandoned again. Alma watched him from the corner of her eyes, trying to make sense of how a man could offer kindness so freely, without expectation. She had spent her life calculating value, measuring worth against survival, and yet here was a man who judged none of it. Cole noticed her gaze and gave a faint, almost imperceptible nod, returning to his tasks. He had learned long ago that people healed on their own timetable. Push too fast, and the walls would rise higher than ever. Let them come slowly, let them see, and they might just trust. When the water began to steam, Alma rose carefully and stepped closer. "Do you eat often like this?" she asked, her voice small, almost hesitant. Cole glanced at her, a faint half-smile tugging at his lips. "Not always, but if I can offer someone else a meal, I do it." She felt warmth rise in her chest, a small ember of hope she had long thought extinguished. The thought that someone could act out of pure decency, without manipulation, without need, felt revolutionary. They ate in silence, the firelight dancing across their faces. Alma's hands shook slightly as she held the tin cup, but Cole did not comment. He simply poured water into his own cup, letting her recover the steadiness that fear and exhaustion had stolen from her. After the meal, Cole gestured to the blankets he had laid on the floor. "Sleep here tonight. I'll take first watch outside. The wind's coming down colder than usual." Alma hesitated, the old habits of wariness creeping back. I can't impose," she whispered. Cole's eyes met hers, unwavering. "You're not imposing. You're resting. That's all. You've earned it just by surviving." Something inside her cracked, the final thin line of resistance. She nodded, and slowly lowered herself onto the blanket, the fire's warmth seeping into her bones. Cole rose and moved toward the door, pausing at the threshold. "Good night, Alma," he said, voice low and steady. "Tomorrow, we start anew. One step at a time." Alma lay back against the blanket, eyes on the fire as the shadows flickered across the walls. For the first time in years, she believed that tomorrow might hold something better than the past. That hope, fragile but persistent, could take root again. Outside, the wind whispered across the prairie, carrying with it the promise of a new beginning, and a quiet assurance that someone was watching over her, steadfast and unwavering. Dawn crept over the horizon in soft streaks of gold and rose, spilling through the small cabin window and painting the wooden floor in warm, gentle hues. Alma stirred beneath the blanket, muscles stiff but her chest lighter than it had been in months. For the first time in a long time, she woke without the constant thrum of fear pressing against her ribs. Cole had already risen. He moved quietly, tending to the fire with steady hands, the soft clink of iron and wood filling the cabin in comforting rhythm. His movements were precise but unhurried, each action deliberate, measured. Alma watched him, a faint awe stirring in her chest. How could a man so steady, so self-contained, offer such quiet strength without asking anything in return? Cole glanced at her briefly, nodding once, almost imperceptibly, before turning back to prepare a simple breakfast of coffee and bread. The aroma of roasted beans and warm bread filled the room, a small, grounding comfort she had almost forgotten existed. Alma's fingers itched to help, but she stayed still, letting him work. "Coffee?" Cole asked, voice low, calm, carrying no expectation. Alma nodded, her throat tight. She took the cup when he offered it, cradling the warmth between her hands. It grounded her, the simple act of holding something tangible and steady. "You don't need to talk," Cole said, pulling a chair over and sitting across from her. "Not yet, anyway. Just eat, just breathe." Alma's eyes flicked to him, grateful but wary. Trust had been a luxury she had long ago surrendered. Yet here was a man who gave it freely, without demand, without judgment. She lifted her gaze to his face, studying the lines worn by sun and wind, the faint crease at the corner of his eyes. Eyes that had seen hardship yet softened at the suffering of another. She spoke quietly, "I've never had anyone do something for me just because." Cole gave a small, near smile. "Most folks have reasons. Some are selfish, some are scared. I'm just not most folks." Alma felt a faint warmth bloom inside her chest, fragile but insistent. The realization that she could exist in a world where someone's actions weren't calculated or cruel was dizzying. It left her breathless, but for the first time, it wasn't painful. Outside, the prairie stretched wide and golden in the morning light, a promise of possibility. Cole stood, offering a hand. "Come with me. There's work to do, and the day won't wait. You've got strength in you, more than you know." Alma hesitated, glancing at the cabin, the blankets, the small fire that had kept her safe through the night. Then, slowly, she took his hand. Stepping outside, the sun warming her face, Alma realized something she had thought impossible. She was ready to begin again. Not just to survive, but to live. Cole led the way across the dew-kissed grass, his steps steady and sure. Alma followed, her heart lighter than it had been in years. Every stride across the open prairie felt like a reclaiming of herself, a small victory over the past that had tried to define her. And as the wind whispered across the wide plains, it carried a promise. Whatever shadows lay behind her, the future could hold something better. Something worth living for. The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the ranch as Alma followed Cole through the morning tasks. Horses nickered softly in their pens, the faint clatter of buckets and feed striking a rhythm she had long forgotten. Her hands ached in unfamiliar ways, not from abuse or exhaustion, but from labor that demanded attention, patience, and care. Cole moved beside her, guiding without commanding, letting her make decisions, offering instruction only when needed. There was no condescension in his tone, only quiet confidence, a steadiness that made her feel capable instead of fragile. "Hold it like this," he said, demonstrating the proper way to fasten a harness. Alma mimicked his motions, fumbling at first, then more sure with every attempt. Cole's eyes flicked toward hers, nodding faintly when she succeeded. There was no applause, no exaggerated praise, but in that subtle acknowledgement, Alma felt a spark of pride she hadn't known in years. She paused for a moment, leaning against the fence, breathing in the scent of hay and sun-warmed earth. The wind teased strands of her hair across her face, carrying with it the faint tang of sage and freedom. Her chest tightened slightly, not from fear, but from the realization that she could exist in this world without constantly bracing for pain. Cole joined her at the fence, his hands resting casually on the wood. "You're doing fine," he said simply. "Better than fine, actually. You've got grit, you've got heart. That counts for more than you think." Alma blinked, surprised. No one had ever described her this way. Most people only saw what she lacked, the ways she had failed, the scars she carried. But Cole looked at her like she mattered, not for what she could give, not for who she was expected to be, but for herself. "Why are you helping me so much?" she asked, voice low, almost afraid to hear the answer. Cole's gaze didn't waver. "Because it's right. Because someone ought to. And because I've seen what happens when folks give up on each other. I'm not about to let that happen to you." Her throat tightened. Words failed her, but the truth of his intentions settled deep in her chest, unspoken but undeniable. She realized how long it had been since someone had offered her kindness freely, without conditions, without judgment. Cole nudged a wheelbarrow toward her. "Ready to move some hay?" Alma squared her shoulders and nodded. "I am." Together, they worked through the morning, side by side, sweat on their brows and sun on their backs. With each chore, Alma felt layers of doubt peel away, replaced by a cautious hope. The kind of hope that didn't demand trust instantly but promised that, maybe, tomorrow could be easier. By noon, they paused to drink from the water trough. Alma's lips touched the cool water, and she finally allowed herself a small smile. She looked at Cole, who returned it with a faint nod. The gesture was simple, but it carried something weighty, the knowledge that they were forging something together, slowly, carefully, a foundation built not on words alone, but on shared effort, respect, and the quiet courage to try again. And in the heat of the midday sun, Alma felt the faintest stirrings of something she had thought impossible: trust. The afternoon sun had softened into a warm amber glow as Alma sat on the porch steps, hands wrapped around a steaming mug of coffee. The ranch lay quiet behind her, horses grazing, distant hills rolling into the horizon. For a moment, she allowed herself to breathe, to feel the weight of survival ease just slightly. But the past has a way of finding its way forward, uninvited and insistent. Alma's fingers trembled as she traced the rim of her mug, the memory of harsh voices and slammed doors creeping in. The fear she had carried for so long didn't disappear with kindness or safety. It lingered, a shadow at the edges of the day, reminding her that peace was fragile. Cole appeared in the doorway, hands resting lightly on the frame, watching her with quiet patience. He said nothing, only leaned against the door, as if giving her the space to confront her thoughts without intrusion. Alma's voice broke the silence. I didn't think I could ever feel safe again." Cole stepped closer, eyes steady, unwavering. "And yet, here you are. Safe, at least for now. And that's the first step. Everything else, we take it slowly." She looked at him, her chest tightening. "I'm afraid," she admitted, the words tasting strange and vulnerable on her tongue. "I don't know if I can really start over. What if I fail again? What if everything I hoped for is taken from me?" Cole crouched beside her, hands resting on his knees. "Alma, fear doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. You've survived more than anyone should, and you're still standing. That alone proves you're stronger than you realize." She swallowed, blinking rapidly to hold back tears. It was rare that someone saw her not as broken or damaged, but as capable, as worthy. For years, she had believed the world had no place for her, that survival was all she could ever hope for. Cole's voice softened. "You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to carry all the weight alone anymore. I'll be here. I'll help. And when you're ready, you'll find that hope you thought lost." Alma lowered her gaze, feeling the warmth of his words seep into the cracks of her heart. The wind stirred the prairie grass, a soft, persistent whisper of possibility. She realized that hope didn't demand certainty. It demanded only a willingness to try, a willingness to allow herself to exist in the light, even after the darkness. I think I want that," she whispered, voice fragile but honest. Cole nodded, offering her a faint, reassuring smile. "Then we start now, one step at a time." As the sun dipped lower behind the hills, casting long shadows across the ranch, Alma felt something shift inside her. The fear remained, yes, but alongside it grew a new feeling. The quiet stirrings of trust, the fragile pulse of hope, and the first tentative beat of a heart learning to believe that love might still find her. For the first time in a long while, Alma allowed herself to imagine a future where she was not alone, where she could breathe freely, where the shadows of her past did not define the horizon. And in that golden light, she knew, tomorrow could be brighter than today. The first light of dawn broke over the prairie in soft hues of gold and rose, painting the ranch in a gentle glow that promised a day unburdened by the shadows of yesterday. Alma stepped onto the porch, bare hands brushing the wooden railing, and inhaled the crisp morning air. For the first time, she felt the weight of her past loosen, as if the night had carried away some of the lingering darkness that had clung to her for so long. Cole emerged from the barn, Duke at his side, the horse nuzzling his shoulder with a familiar, comforting nicker. Cole's presence was steady and grounding, as if the world could wobble in every other direction, and still this man and his calm would remain unshaken. "Morning," he said, voice soft but certain. "Morning," Alma replied, her lips curving into a tentative smile. The words felt strange but liberating, simple greetings she had not allowed herself to speak in a long time. Cole gestured toward the horses in the fields beyond. "We've got a full day ahead. But first, breakfast." Alma followed him into the cabin, where the smell of coffee and warm bread filled the air. She caught herself noticing details she had never allowed herself to see before. The small bouquet of dried flowers on the table, the sunlight through the window catching the dust motes in a golden haze, the rhythm of a life slowly settling into place. As they ate, the conversation was quiet, unhurried. Cole asked about her journey, her past, but only to the extent she felt comfortable answering. No pressure, no judgment, only genuine interest. Alma realized how long it had been since someone had simply listened without expectation, and the realization brought tears she quickly brushed away. Later, they stepped outside together, walking across the dew-drenched grass toward the horses. Alma felt strength returning to her legs, steadiness to her step. She mounted carefully, Duke beneath her moving with gentle patience. Cole led his horse alongside, speaking softly as they rode toward the open fields, the horizon stretching endlessly before them. The wind carried a whisper of freedom, tangling in Alma's hair, stirring the promise of something new. She glanced at Cole, and for the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a life not defined by fear, not bound by loneliness. "You've changed things for me," she said, voice barely audible over the soft breeze. Cole glanced at her, a faint, warm smile tugging at his lips. "You've changed things for yourself," he replied. "I only reminded you that you can." Alma felt a swell in her chest, hope blooming where only despair had lived. She realized that trust, once fragile, could grow into something strong. That love, once thought impossible, could be quiet, steady, and patient, like the sunrise, relentless in its promise. As the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the prairie, Alma and Cole rode side by side, the horizon wide and endless before them. Each step, each mile, felt like reclamation, a life reborn from hardship and sorrow. And for the first time, Alma allowed herself to believe that the future could hold more than survival. It could hold joy, it could hold hope, it could hold love. And as they disappeared into the rolling golden fields, the wind carried with it a simple truth. Sometimes, the greatest courage is letting someone help you, and the most extraordinary love is the one that arrives when you least expect it, steady, unwavering, and ready to heal every broken place.